In this episode, we're revisiting successful cutting-edge product and service marketing lessons learned from key brand marketing leaders who share insights on how to win in competitive markets, how to effectively leverage your agency partners, and what it takes to stand out in today's crowded advertising space. Welcome to Contrary to Popular Opinion, a podcast hosted by Vujade Digital. In each episode, we bring you provocative topics and novel perspectives around leadership, business, and marketing that defy the norms because exponential growth demands unconventional thinking and visionary action. So open your mind and let's get into this week's episode.
Obviously, this day and age, there are new tools for every single thing you might want to do in the marketing space, in e-commerce space. I mean, you go to the Shopify marketplace for a different app. I mean, you can find an app for anything. But I think sometimes like we're so deep in the forest, all we're seeing are the trees. And like we step back, at the end of the day, it still goes back to the 4 Ps of marketing. And sometimes I think we just need to simplify and recognize that like, hey, look, do we have a great product? Are we priced? Are we in the right places? And are we promoting it the correct way? And I think, obviously what you're talking about is the 4th P, the promotional side. And to your point, social proof is always going to be the best method to get people to buy into your product. People don't trust brands. I mean, we're trying to sell you a product, right? We're going to tell you anything that we can, obviously within reason. We're not going to lie or be, super deceitful, but a consumer is, they see an ad and they're just like, well, yeah, of course you say you're the best. Everyone thinks they're the best.
No one's advertising they're mediocre.
Exactly. And so like, I think when we get to the social proof side, obviously that's become such a huge thing with like UGC. Now UGC, you could argue has gone too far, and half of the UGC, probably more than half of the UGC out there is paid for and looks fake and looks, like the person probably never even tried the product before they received that sample. But at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. We could build the best advertising in the world in-house or using an agency or something like that and be a beautiful commercial. But if you don't have that community, because when a consumer these days has more tools than ever, just like we have more tools than ever. So they see an ad and they're like, that's an interesting product. I am looking to cut down maybe a little bit on my drinking, or, I love the taste of beer, but I don't want to have a beer at 10 in the morning when I'm on a podcast. So I want to have a hot water. So they see that ad and they're like, that looks like a really cool product. What are they going to do? They're going to either go to the website and check maybe some reviews. They're going to go to Instagram or Facebook and say like, okay, how many followers do these guys have? What are people saying about this product? Maybe they'll just Google us, and see like what's out there. What's the rating? What are the stars? And that's why like even on Amazon, they say like, you got to get to at least 50 to 100 reviews, because if you don't have that social proof, I know personally as a consumer, if I see a product that looks great and is priced maybe too good to be true, and it only has 3 reviews, probably not buying it, because that's probably a product that just changed names and changed its listing because it was getting a ton of negative reviews. So community building, I think, is so important, and something that like I know we at Hop Water want to continue to build upon, because I'll tell you, like, this non-alcoholic space has tapped into something that people love. Mountain biking is huge. Hiking is huge. All these sports where beer has played a role, but maybe you don't want to have a beer when you're about to go down like a steep slope on a mountain bike.
We're not doing the beer mile. We're doing the non-alcoholic beer mile.
Yeah, maybe the non-alcoholic beer mile is next. I ran a half marathon earlier this year. I would have had hop water before the race. But I mean, so people who like hop water love hop water. And so like we're doing exactly that. Like, how do we tap into this community to really tell the stories of how people are using this product? Because they love it. What are the methods to use that? But to your point, the story has not changed. It's still telling a story about a brand and why you should believe in it. It's just the methods have changed.
Speaking of methods, and you brought up Amazon. So Kelly and I vacillate around this with a lot of brands and products we work with, in terms of it's so easy to get your product on Amazon and get people to just add it to what they're shopping for on Amazon. Yet it's a margin killer for the brand side. And then where's the loyalty? Is it on Amazon? Is it to the brand? And so many times we've been asked by D2C brands that were sort of native D2C startup brands, which, by the way, the last guest we had on our show also used Dr. Squatch as the example of this great brand. So I guess they're the new Dollar Shave Club.
They must be doing something right.
And I use the product and I love it. And it is expensive, but that's okay. It's better for my arm. So we've been asked so many times by these native D2C brands, like, hey, how do we get off the Amazon sort of crack that is everybody's buying our product there, but the margins kill us or whatever. So you've no doubt had to face this challenge in your past roles and have to face it in this role. Can you talk about that? How are you tackling that?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to say anything that you guys probably haven't heard or talked about before. Amazon is where 70% of product searches start now. It is what it is. I mean, I hate to say it. And look, at the end of the day, I mean, even going back to what I said at the beginning, it's like we have to be realistic about how consumers are shopping these days. And as a brand, our job is to get cans in hands. Obviously, internally, we need that to be profitable. We need it to scale appropriately. But we have to recognize that people are shopping on Amazon, and that's not going to change anytime in the near future. So how do we build the right model on Amazon? How do we make sure that what we're doing there is profitable and driving profitable growth? And obviously, that's deep diving the P&L, something that we don't need to get into today because that would just be very, very boring. But obviously, it's not always easy for all brands to find that profitability. I will tell you, coming from chocolate brands, it was very hard to be profitable on Amazon because, shipping chocolate is certainly not easy. Hop water has its own challenges because our cans weigh a lot, when you put a 12 pack or a 36 pack together. But I think we found a way to do it. Now recognizing direct to consumer is a more profitable and a place that we can do a better job of storytelling and developing that loyalty. So I think the reality is I don't want to be defeatist, but there's not really a ton that can be done necessarily, at least in my mind, about people shopping Amazon. And in fact, it's a great brand introducer because that's where people are shopping. But I think, again, it goes back to how do we build this brand so strong that people can't help but want to visit the website to learn more about it? And then how do you create meaningful added value to the consumer experience on the website? I've seen people do something as simple as you get stickers, like brand stickers with every order. It sounds so dumb, but I will tell you as a consumer, I love getting stickers. I pop it on the back of my laptop or my thermos or whatever. And it's little things like that. Obviously, those are just added values. But again, if people truly love your brand, and Kelly, to your point about building that community, I am a hop water enthusiast. I want everything that this brand is willing to give me. We offer merch on the website. We don't sell merch on Amazon. And if you sign up for a subscription, you get a hop water beanie on your second order. And we're giving you additional value on your sixth order and all this kind of stuff. So there are ways to do it. But for me, I just think that Amazon is a tool in the toolkit and it's where people are. One of my old bosses at Mars used to say, fish where the fish are. And unfortunately, the fish are on Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah. Let your consumers buy your product where they want to buy it. But the economic challenge with that can be pretty significant. And that's what a lot of times Kelly and I have been asked that question is, how do we move? If we could move some percentage, a small percentage, 10% of purchases on Amazon to the .com, the financial impact of the P&L would be significant. And when you've got brands that are trying to create that sort of impact, Amazon, love it or hate it, it's there. It creates a lot of traction, but it's also, it's shocking how much of your revenue can come out of that one channel. Kelly, I know you have something to add here.
Yeah. I think this all comes kind of full circle into where my head goes, especially around the CPG space. Is Steve, you said something earlier that really struck me, and I think it's a challenge that we often have to guide through or point through with a lot of our clients is, I think a lot of times brand owners can get very close to their own product and their own process and really believe in that perspective of I have a great product and I have all these reasons to believe, that sometimes they get lost a little bit in almost stress testing their own marketing, their own user journey, and really putting themselves in the shoes and saying, well, how would I go about discovering and buying? Or what would the hurdle, would I follow what I'm expecting the people I'm marketing to follow? Or is that not a clunky experience? And this is where a lot of times we have to accept, Amazon is a discovery place. And then we go into the idea, and you mentioned this heavily with the stickers and the beanies and things, is where can you create value exchange and really accepting that you aren't asking a consumer, if they move off of Amazon and go direct to you, you're asking them to give up things. You're asking them to give up convenience. You're asking them to give up the one-click add to my cart where I'm buying other things. And that is going to take them more time. Instead of adding this product to a cart where they can conveniently do a single purchase, you're asking them to do it you're already going to do on Amazon, but then leave there, go to my site, put in new credit card information. This is all time and energy that you are extracting out of your consumer. And so this is where we talk to brands is, where do you create that benefit for being willing to do that? Where do you create that value add? Where do you create that exchange? And then also using Amazon from a nurturing component. Maybe you do use it and take that financial hit, that margin hit on the discovery process. But now, how do you slowly and methodically migrate them into a direct customer where now, okay, you've tried me, you've done the convenience, but now you're bought in. So how do I bring you into my ecosystem because you're sold on the idea? It's not a hypothetical, maybe I like this before I ask you to be a loyal customer kind of component. So I think it does kind of come full circle on being strategic and how you use these vehicles. And again, what I often feel like gets lost from the marketer side is that realization that I am asking consumers for value. I'm asking for time. I'm asking for money. I'm asking for belief and trust and trial and all these things. And if I'm going to ask that, I have to really critically think about what am I offering? What am I giving in order to receive versus just I'm going to put an ad and they're going to believe and buy. So I think the way that you talk about it and inherently accept that, I think is it's refreshing to see that it's not just I have a great product, give me money for it. But no, like I'm asking you to believe in me and buy. And so I need to give you stickers and reasons to believe and make it fun and make it engaging and give you a value other than just my good product.
So Oobli is very unique in the market. We are the first company ever to bring sweet proteins as an ingredient into consumer food and drink products. Sweet proteins are actually found naturally in plants in West Africa. But our team of scientists have developed a way to actually make them using a process called precision fermentation, which essentially means that they can do it without any environmental impact at scale. What sweet proteins do is basically trick your taste buds into thinking they're sugar, and they taste sweet. They taste just like sugar, and they are so potent that just a tiny bit can replicate sugar. It's about 3,000 to 5,000 times sweeter by weight than sugar, depending on which of the types of berries that you're working with. So it's an amazing product. Like I said, we are the first company in the world to bring it to consumers in product form. We have a line of sweet iced teas, and we also have milk and dark chocolate. And we have a full product roadmap for the future. But we're very excited about our first products, and it's been amazing having consumers try them and give us feedback and react to that. And we're really just beginning. It's so early. We've only been selling for about a year, and we are now really ramping up our production and the number of products we have. But it's early and we're excited, and we are a very passionate group who really think that our product will make a difference in the world, both from a health impact and from an environmental impact.
That's amazing. I have to admit, I didn't think you could do much more to sweeteners out there than what's already been done. But lo and behold, somewhere in like you said, in West Africa, there's some plant that somebody discovered could be turned into something. So I love the innovation of food technology and the fact that we'll all have maybe a better experience, better diet with this type of product. I want to talk a little bit about your role as marketing, direct to consumer, and you've had these really big marketing roles in your past career, which means you've probably had the luxury of working with big budgets and big agencies and being able to sort of do a lot of cool stuff. And now you're in this sort of startup, venture-backed startup company. You don't probably have the big budgets. So tell us a little bit about how your marketing journey started there, in the sense of when you got there and you assessed what you're going to need to do your job and you thought about reaching out and finding a partner. What sort of things did you think you needed to go find? And then we can segue into who you found, and that being us, and how things are working.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. My career is kind of weird that way, where I started at Target and then I went to Ascena, which is smaller. And then I went to Bright Health, which is smaller. And now I went to a really like out of the gate startup. So it's been kind of a reverse traction for me, but I love it. And it's fun and it's cool because in my role, not only do I lead all of our media, both paid, earned, and owned, but I also lead all of our website. So all of our dev, our customer service, and I have a big role in running our sales on Amazon. So it's really broad. So it's fun. The bigger company, the more narrow the role. And in this case, I get to do everything. So when I took this role and started looking for partners, I had to source everybody. Who am I going to get for dev? Who am I going to have be our front end website? Who am I going to have for customer service? And most importantly, who am I going to have for media and media strategy? And as I looked around, I had a lot of history with a lot of different agencies that are versed in different things, like anybody else, strengths and weaknesses. And I actually started with an agency from my past that was just too big. And great people, great intentions, but they didn't have the focus really, nor the expertise in the CPG startup vertical to be really impactful for us. So I quickly shifted where I met Bujade. And when I met your team, there were a couple things that were important to me as we were sort of getting to know each other and talking about working together. And those were obviously the breadth of experience. One thing that I find when I've worked with agencies over the years is you have to pull and pull and pull to get them to tell you what the most important thing for a person like me is. What are you seeing out there? Because you're out there with all these different clients all day, every day. And we are hungry at the brand level to know what you know and what you're seeing out there in the market. But I don't have to do that with you guys because you offer it up and it's amazing. I used to have to put it on the agenda of every quarterly meeting. Like, I want to know what you're seeing. And then it would be just a little bit and it wouldn't be broad and it wouldn't be like, hey, we did this and this worked. And hey, we did this and this didn't work. That's invaluable to me. And I think it's been really a part of the huge value I get from working with your team. The second piece is the strategy. It's not just execution. It's business strategy. It's not media channel strategy only. Yes, of course, that's part of it, but it's a broader business model strategy. So when we have a conversation, it's like, all right, I'm a brand new brand. I have a brand new novel protein that's used in a product. Nobody knows what it is or understands it. And I have to get people to start trying it. How do we do that? What's the strategy, right? So it's not just what do you do within ABC media platform, but it's what's the overarching strategy, inclusive of who's the target audience, what's the offer, what's the value proposition, what does it look like from a lifetime value perspective. All of those things are what we talk about and what's made our relationship work so well, I think. And then I would say the third thing is just the dialogue we have on our weekly calls. Kelly is in every single one of our weekly calls and we will debate stuff, right, Kelly? Like we will go back and forth. A lot of agencies will just be like, if I say, here's the site, here's what I think. And they'll say, okay, great. And they'll just do it. Might not be right because I don't know everything. But with the Bujade team, we have a good dialogue about it. And they're not afraid to say, I actually thought about this the opposite way. And I listen. So I think part of a good dynamic between a client and an agency is the willingness to listen to each other and be open to it, right? There are some times when I think people are a little afraid and then I encourage them, right? That's great. No, you can push back. I want to hear what you have to say, especially to like some of the younger team members, like they're a little intimidated, right? But we kind of get through that and it's all good. And I love hearing what everyone has to say. And I think it makes our work product better and our results better, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think you touched on exactly what I wanted to go through when we talk about sort of agency-client relationships. And one of the things I think has been really unique with how we've gotten along across the team, myself included, is a lot of that sort of creativity, right? I've always noticed that a lot of our calls start out a lot more personal and kind of get to know each other. There's actually that element of kind of we've joked about looking forward to the calls and joking around and having a lot of anecdotes and stories. And it's not just, numbers on a spreadsheet and stuff. And I think for me, that's been really conducive from a business perspective. There's that sense of accountability of, a borderline of using the word friendship in there, but there's an element of really knowing, hey, this is a person that I'm looking forward to that call and we want to have that dialogue. But I think that creates that comfort and that willingness. You alluded to the fact that a lot of times, one of the reasons I was excited to work on Oobli is there's a lot of possibility. There's a lot of uniqueness and a lot of creativity that can come in. And there's that comfort level. I'm pretty sure I've probably thrown out 24 ideas that have been ranging from good to ridiculous, but it's at least a dialogue that we talk about on, this could be fun, or what about this? And you have a perspective and we have a perspective. And I think it's been fun to collaborate and really find the things that are exciting or practical and those types of things. So, can you talk a little bit about that on what your experience with, yes, there's the business side of a relationship, but there's also that idea that when you work with an agency or a company, whether it's us at the brand or you with an agency, these are people you're going to have to talk to a couple times a week and rely upon and believe in. And I think sometimes that gets lost when picking agencies and going through the review process. There's the resumes, there's the credentials, and there's the background, but there's also just that human connection of, are we in this together? It's pretty close to a coworker type relationship a lot of those times. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it comes down to trust, like you mentioned. Like You got to feel safe to say what you think to everybody in the room and the team. It's about being respectful and it's about being fun. We do this work thing. I don't know about you guys, but I'm up about 50 some hours a week. So it's a lot. It's a lot of your time, and you might as well have fun if that's where you're spending most of your time, for sure. I also like how we get into brainstorming when we're working on some of the sort of day-to-day stuff and people just throwing out ideas. And a lot of them we've actually done and they've worked really well. So I think that's an important piece to it too. One thing that happened recently that I can share with everybody listening is we are looking at starting an affiliate program. And in my last role doing insurance, we didn't have an affiliate program. It wasn't part of our media channel mix. So I'd been out of it for about 4 years. So looking to get back in and realizing that the landscape was completely different than it was 4 years ago, because now influencers have become all the affiliates and it's just a completely different situation. So ask the Vujade team, hey, do you offer an influencer management as part of your services? Tell me about it. What can you tell me? What happened was the individual who leads that team prepared an extremely thoughtful sort of overview and approach to how Vujade manages it, and talked to me about not only the services, and it wasn't even really about the services. It kind of started with, here's the objective, here's what you want to do, and here's the software you need to be able to actually pull this off. And we talked about what I've used in the past and what they've built. And I learned that Vujade has actually built software to help facilitate influencer management. We're going to give it a try. Like, it's that type of thing where it's not just to come at me to sell me more services. Like, I hear you have this need. Let me show you what we've done. It's also unique to find an agency that actually has taken on a MarTech capability because they see a need. They see white space in the industry. They see something coming down the road that requires solving for, and they get ahead of it. And when you have that sort of internal tech capability, I think it really makes you specialized in a way that you can customize it more easily and you can use it to sort of test out, see what's working, and that can lead to more things. And I think what I've always enjoyed in the past has been working with an agency where if we have, as part of our normal course of doing business, we've identified a gap, what can we do to tackle that from a MarTech perspective? I've done that multiple times. And each time it's been sort of groundbreaking in that it's been a step change from what we were doing before to what we're doing now. It's happened in attribution, it's happened in just optimization, and it's almost a requirement for working in digital media because there's always that next thing you have to solve for because of the way the platforms are evolving.
One of the interesting things about our engagement is technically you sort of inherited us when you took the role. You didn't necessarily go through our pitch and sort of sorting us between others, which again, we were grateful for. And hopefully we justified keeping us around and why we were there in the first place. But you mentioned the people that ultimately do the work. And this is the conversation that Todd and I always had, which is digital media is, for the most part, a relatively even playing field. Everyone, if you have the knowledge base and the experience, you can access the tools and you can access the things that you need to. Someone will sell you the licenses on all of that. And so really what it comes down to more often than not is the actual people that are doing the day-to-day work. And so when you're going through a pitch in your history, and obviously you get your salespeople and your new business people that are promising you the world and claiming all their awards, and you're going to get the best of everything, all of that. How do you go through sifting through the reality and the noise of a pitch and deciding who is just promising me what I want to hear to get me to sign on the bottom line versus who's actually going to show up and do what I need? Because obviously all these brands hire agencies and it doesn't always work out. You hire a new one 6 months or a year or 2 years down the road because you don't necessarily get what you want. I'd love to hear your perspective on how you go from being promised everything you need to hear to what your real engagement experience is like and what that's been.
It's so interesting because we just went through this with a technology solution for the business, and I won't go into detail. But yeah, the salespeople are amazing. And literally, I prepared tons of examples like, here's how the workflow works now. And can you recreate this? Yes, yes, yes. Could you show me an example of where you've recreated it so I can get close and I can visualize how it can work and all that great stuff? Sure, sure, sure. And then you get passed along the way. I think it really is important to say, could I meet the people who are working on my business day to day? And I think it's also challenging because some clients will say, I only want to work with the principals. And that's not possible. I mean, that is a luxury that not every agency can afford. And especially if you have scrappy budgets or a challenging business model or something like that. So you want to let those principals do what they do best too. So I think it's fine to say, can I meet the people who would be working on my business day to day? Can we have a quick conversation? You might know about my vertical. You might know about healthcare. You might know about retail. You might know about technology or education or all these verticals I've worked in. Or you might not, and have a real where do you think the challenges are going to be? Yes, because you're right. You can apply, particularly in a media agency, you could apply a lot of solutions to the business. And you can look at GA and you can check stuff out. And you can be probably okay. But you're not going to get that passion or that energy unless you're engaging and you are a great business partner too. This is not everybody come to me, I'm the client. Literally, you've got to put in that time and energy to educate, to share, not just hey, here's the issue. We've got scrappy budgets and we're small, but hey, here's what's happening, with the flu. By the way, I hope everybody's got their flu shot by this date or whatever. Flu season's coming, everybody. Just updating people on what's happening through the lens of your business to keep them engaged and thinking about you, even when they're maybe working on another client, I think is important.
I'm glad you brought it back to that, Liz, because I was going to take it back to the Jerry Maguire example of help you. The one thing that really stood out with you that I think our team just fell in love with was your willingness and your openness and almost this sensibility of being humble that you were right. Most agencies would feel like you're the CMO. We just have to bow down to you. But you put yourself at the same level, eye to eye with us. And you put yourself in the game with us as if we were just all in the same org chart. And Kelly and I talk all the time about we are the principals and we are part of the workforce org chart that you get to work with. That's just unique to our business. Not all agencies can do that. That level of accountability, I don't know. If you're a CMO and you were speaking on a panel at a conference to a bunch of other CMOs, what would you tell them about how you think they should behave from a level of accountability and participation with their agencies in order to get the greatest value out of the agency and not come across as that I'm the CMO and you should bow down to me?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, leave your ego at the door. We're all here, as I said, to get the job done. We're hopefully all working towards the same goal. And because of that, help you, help me, help you. The better I do, the better hopefully you will do. The better crafted our media strategies and execution looks like, the more money I may get in a budget and the more I'm going to send your way. Also, I'm going to hopefully be more grateful. But I think it really is that trust, being honest, being really, really transparent with what's happening and what you're trying to achieve. There is no sense in withholding info. I don't know why anyone would ever do that. I should mention I worked on the agency side for the first part of my career, both in San Francisco and in New York. So I have that agency sort of experience and remember what it was like. Sometimes people would be just total jerks and it's not motivating and it's not fun. And their projects are maybe the last ones I want to work on at the end of the day, or I want to give to my team to work on at the end of the day. But the people who are grateful and thoughtful, and again, transparent, sharing information, take your agency on the journey with you. I mean, don't burden them if you can help that, but give them enough info so they can be successful. I think that really comes into play when we merged, when Exer merged, and we took on another 27 clinics, but again, 23 brands within those clinics. And so how do we add them successfully to the mix in a fourth quarter that is an expensive media quarter, that is right around the holidays, that is in the healthcare world, flu season? And how do we do that successfully with the same amount of budget, basically double the clinics, and now 24 brands? And guess what? We did that and had flat budget, lower impressions, but the best metrics ever. The best CPA, the best CPC, the best engagement rates. And if I think about 23% of the visits are driven from that, I'll bet you it was even higher during that time period based on the effectiveness. And we achieved that by working so diligently throughout the summer and doing all the testing during the summer where there was less risk and being able to really bring that to fruition at the holiday. And we didn't know we were going to merge when we started all the testing, but we helped our future selves. We did all that testing. And then we were able to benefit from those strategies when it came to the fourth quarter and had kind of a daunting challenge, I think, in front of us. So I congratulate all of us and the team behind us, really, because they worked their tails off and did that.
I appreciate that. In the spirit of the topic, the client agent relationship, you said a couple of things that brought kind of two topics to my mind, and I'll go one by one here. So in terms of being able to align with the people and ask those questions of who am I really going to be working with? What does my actual team look like? I'd love to get your thoughts, because Todd and I talk about this all the time, this idea of big fish in small ponds and small fish in big ponds, and what that means. And again, I have two parts to this question. One is going to be fee and cost related. I'll save that for the second one. But as far as what is your opinion on aligning yourself as a client, your size of budget, your size of needs with the size of agency and the profile of agency to be able to work with the right people versus, again, you can go with a big, well-known brand agency, or you can go with a small boutique agency, or you can go somewhere in between. Like, how do you navigate the matching yourself as a client with the right agency profile?
That's a great question, because I've had to figure that out when I've rebranded companies, and I'm looking for big branding solutions and campaigns and things like that too, as well as media, because everything is separate these days. I think you do want a little bit of the attention, and I'd rather be one of those clients that doesn't get eaten up or swallowed or ignored. I'd rather be a little bit of a big fish in a little pond so that I'm important to the agency, truth be told. But sometimes when you're a little fish and you have teeny budgets that keep getting challenged, you have to be really thoughtful. And so I would never really just go for a name brand agency. I would always go with the people I'm working with. I'm going to tell you right now, so don't rake me over the coals in negotiations, but anywhere I go now, I will always try to work with you guys again. This was the best working relationship I've had with any media agency in my decades and decades career and decades as a CMO and chief brand officer. So hopefully I will not be too small or too big to work with your team again. Back to the question too, I think you do need to figure out what their, as Todd mentioned in the beginning, what their values are. And I tend to move really quickly because I like to iterate and pivot when we need to. And really growth is all about moving quickly so you can see those results. We don't have the luxury of doing it so slowly anymore. So speed is important for me when I have clients that can, or agencies rather, that can move sort of at the speed that I move. That's important, and be responsive and available.
Is there some bifurcation between brand and other advertising, right? Does brand still have, does it still have a place on it unto in itself? Can you have somebody that's really focused on, it's part of what Kelly just said. We need to build a brand. We've had, for example, startups come to us who have a great product. Yeah. Or maybe I'll pick, for example, an e-bike company. Mm-hmm. Great, cool product. They want to immediately start advertising on Meta and Google. And our first question is, why would anyone want to buy your e-bike over the 20 other e-bike brands that are already out there who have put a bunch of money into building a brand, have a brand reputation, they have brand awareness, brand affinity, they have all these brand sort of values that they can lean in on. And then we get a company that goes, yeah, but we've got a really cool bike and our bike is better than theirs. So we just need to run ads and people will buy our bike. And our argument back to them is it's so much so now that when startup brands approach us, we're kind of the negative naysayers about what's reality, because most of them don't come in and go, we've got a bunch of money to build a brand. And then once we do that, we want to start performance. Have you seen sort of how brand and performance and growth work together? Do you see brand having to come well before and get some sort of a strong foothold before growth can be realistically expected in performance? What's your take between those two topics?
No, I think they can operate simultaneously, but I do think it's important to have a brand, because otherwise, I mean, what differentiates you than an Amazon copycat? People will just go to Amazon copycat if it's just the product that you're just selling. But I think they can operate simultaneously. From the brand side, I think what really helps too is yes, good packaging and all of these things do help. For sure. It just makes things more memorable and things like that. We don't think about these things, but it matters. And then I think also from a PR and partnership standpoint, that helps really establish coolness and different types of emotions, because North Face did a collaboration with Supreme. It's instantly elevated. Crocs has done a really, really solid job with collaborations all through the pandemic. Like they've done stuff with Justin Bieber, they've just done stuff with Bad Bunny, they've done stuff with even KFC. Like they've just taken these like tastemakers and just super relevant like pop culture references over the time and like done these collaborations, and that instantly became their advertising and made them cool. So I do think that brand from that side, partnerships, PR is like super important, and then that obviously provides a halo effect to advertising, like on the direct response side too. Another great example is Dr. Squatch. I've been following them for so long. We've just done such a phenomenal job on the licensing side. Like even when iOS 14 hit, they had the Star Wars collection going, and that naturally elevated click-through rates and things like that because everyone knows about Star Wars and is a fan. So yeah, I think it's the partnership side, the influencer side, so important these days to do that as well in tandem with ads.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I actually have contributed to the revenue earnings of Dr. Squatch because I decided to go try their product as a result of their advertising, because I'm like, it's everywhere, but it's thoughtful, it's creative, and ultimately they do a good job of communicating their value prop, which is their product is healthier. It is better for you. And so I'm a consumer because of that. So advertising works. It's a good thing that it does because that's what keeps the internet free. Anyway, I love their products. So thanks for bringing them up. Okay. So Juhi, there's always the big question of agency or in-house. And that's, every magazine, Ad Age has been writing about this. It's been a challenge for marketers. I know you've had the fortune of sort of seeing both sides of that coin. What's your perspective on that? Do brands, how do they pull it in-house? Is it worth it? Can they get the experience and the talent? Can they keep it? Do agencies have more depth of experience because they work on so many other different things? And is that a benefit? Do you have a preference?
Yeah. So in my experience, it's different at different phases of the business. So if you're just starting out and have less capital, founder usually does most of it and then brings on from freelancers. If you're funded, you get an agency from day one, typically, because they're able to provide multiple resources, all the learnings from different clients and industries, like you said, and they're able to do the heavy lifting to get you to set up and figure out product market fit, which is usually what you're doing until you hit like at least $500,000 in media spend a month. Once you reach about 20 million in media spend annually, agency fees, that's when I see agency fees become really steep and substantial, especially if you're paying percent spend. And that's when, people start realizing, oh, there's some room to gain some savings in OpEx by taking this in-house. So at this point, they've figured out product market fit and they've scaled. So they're just like, okay, this agency we sort of figured out like the formula now, and now we're taking it to the next level. So let's save the money, let's take it in-house, and then sort of have the team integrated with us. At a mid-size level, my preference is always in-house teams, given they're integrated into the org, there's less coordination, there's cost savings, and you can move quickly on things. Unless there's a specialization. So, like the in-house team may not be experts in Amazon. Amazon's a completely different beast. TV advertising, the best rates come from agencies because they can buy economies at scale. So if there's a specialization, then yes, continue to have an agency. For larger businesses, though, I think they favor agencies like the Fortune 1000s, Fortune 500s. Also because their businesses span across geos. So it's a lot more coordination. Agencies also tend to have global teams and things like that. So it's just easier, I think, because there's so much coordination involved to have an agency that can support all the initiatives. It can be a single agency or multiple. Like it could be a separate media agency globally or a creative agency globally. But I typically always see the bigger businesses have agencies.
So there's like this middle ground where you're too small you're so small, you got to do it yourself. And then you kind of grow a little bit. You're like, now I can afford an agency. And then you get to a point where you're like, hey, we know what we're doing. We could save some money. And then you get too big and you're like, we can't do it all. So now we need an agency again. So you see that middle ground there.
Yeah, but I think that the agencies really are going to succeed now on if you really nail in and to get specialized in something too, because nobody can be the best at everything. There's just too many things now. So if you are like the best at Amazon, people are going to come to you for Amazon because they likely don't have the experience to do that as good as you. So I do think that agencies should, yes, offer as many services, but also become an expert in at least one thing.
Fair enough. Great opinion.
So I think this is great. I mean, this leads me to what I think is my last big question. And Juhi, I love everything you said and your background. You've brought up a few really good points around iOS 14.5 and all these other things. And you've obviously seen an evolution from certain times of that. I'd really be curious as to what you've seen sort of change and evolve with these new consumers and younger generations and what it takes to get their attention and what it takes to get them to buy and sell. And I know I have a point of view on how it's changed and shifted, but I'd love to hear from your perspective, especially being with celebrity-based brands and the cool brands and things like that, what that means with whether it's influence or validation or breakthrough. How have you seen that evolve recently in terms of what it takes to actually break through and get attention and get action from consumers?
Yeah, I mean, Gen Z is definitely more purpose-driven. So that's something, for sure to keep in mind. Like I remember like 10 years ago and stuff, people were talking about sustainable, but when you actually sold sustainable, why was it not a thing? Because like consumers weren't necessarily buying it because it was more expensive, but Gen Z is actually buying it and actually going out and they're saying that we care about sustainable. So now everyone's doing sustainable. I love that. I love that they're pushing the envelope and they're pushing for change, and it's inspiring like all the other generations too to go for it. So yeah, I think we're all still trying to understand how to market to them correctly, but it's important because it is a little different, and it's different in a good way, and they are defining like what's cool essentially right now.
Thanks for listening to Contrary to Popular Opinion, where we challenge you to think independently, push the limits, and take uncommon action so you can achieve game-changing results in your business and your life. To stay up to date with our latest episodes, be sure to click the follow or subscribe button now. Thanks again for listening. See you next time.